Howdy there, YouTube. This is Mr. Gibson Guy. Welcome to the channel. Today I got a brief video for you. I've been working on specific camera manufacturers and different aspects of some of their cameras, but today we're going to take a little different. You see, we have a little different view here. We have a bunch of different brands of cameras coming up to visit us, and we're going to be talking about who in the world was it that ever came up with the idea of slapping a motor on a camera? Cameras were for picture taking, and that's what they concentrated on. But as the competition heated up for the professional market, camera manufacturers started thinking of other things they could put on the camera to make it easier to use or give it some more versatility in the things you could do with it. And one of the things that came out early on was the motor drive, like this great big heavy bulky thing. Now there were 4 disadvantages to this. The advantage was you could burn through a lot of film pretty fast, but the disadvantages were: 1, it was big and bulky. 2, it was heavy and just wear you down if you have this hanging around your neck. You couldn't stand it. 3, it was very intricate to put together and to operate, and these things were just in their infancies. And 4, it was really expensive. Get a camera body and a lens and the motor drive and the battery pack, just basic stuff to get going. Back in the late 60s, early 70s, you were talking about well over $1,000 just for this rig. And you probably wanted to have 2, right? So, and that was in money when you could buy a house for $20,000. So $1,000 was a lot of money back in those days. But these things had that famous sound that everybody would hear on the news at 6 o'clock every night, and you'd see at sporting events and you hear this, and so it was something that the camera manufacturers said, maybe it's kind of a crazy idea. I think that people want to just go out and burn through film, but maybe there'll be some market for people who will be interested in buying a camera if they can slap a motor under it. And so we started seeing consumer cameras, lower price cameras, that had not motor drives on them, but they had an Autowinder. And I'm going to give you an example one here. Now, you're going to see this camera again because I'm using 2 of these today. This is a Canon A1, and it was kind of an advanced amateur camera, but door's not sticking either. But this was part of the Canon A series: AE1, AV1, A1, AL1, AT1, a whole bunch of them. And they all took the same winders and flashes and lens. They had a bunch of interchangeable stuff. And this was one of the first ones. It was the Autowinder A. What was the name of the thing? Canon Autowinder A. Yeah, all right. Now, I'm going to be aiming all these out the window so the auto exposure goes to fast shutter. But this is kind of what the early Autowinder sounded like. Yeah, you just heard that was 6 exposures like that. Like that. And that was what they started out with. Not real aggressive sounding, but I'll tell you what, when I got my XG7, the first thing I did was to buy an Autowinder G and put it on there so that I could play it and just like that, like the real photographers did. This one doesn't have batteries in it. I got more winders than I have batteries. And Olympus came along and they thought, well, let's kind of blur the subject here a little bit, or the distinction. And they came out with a very compact, you see this is smaller, it's cut off back here, Autowinder with a control on the bottom and a button on the top. And this one would be a little bit more like a motor drive. In fact, they had a motor drive that looked almost identical to it. But this is the Autowinder, and you'll hear it's a little bit different than that Canon. This one happens to be in Winder 1, so I have to bounce my finger on it. And you can hear it's a little bit louder, it's a little bit higher pitched, it's a little bit faster. It's still 4 AA batteries. It's a 6-volt Autowinder, which is just basic. And then they came out with the Winder 2. This one's got a little switch problem on it, but this one had continuous, and it does this. The switch is messed up on the on-off switch for it. But that was kind of blurring the lines between Autowinders and motor drives. And then Nikon came out with a very popular line of cameras along the lines of what Canon did with the A1, but these are a little bit more professional directed. This is an FE, and I have an FM2, and there's an FE2 and an FM, not one, but just an FM, and the FA, I got one of those too. And these all used the Motor Drive 11 or the Motor Drive 12, and the FA would use either one of those, plus it would do the MA Motor Drive 15, which was just exclusively for the FA. But this one, so this starts to get to be some serious camera work here. Yeah, you hear that? Now we're getting somewhere. Recognize the sound? That sounds more like the newsroom. And Canon doesn't want to be outdone, so they came out with their A1, like you saw at the beginning with an Autowinder, but now they had the Canon MA1 motor drive. And this has a big battery pack. It holds 12 batteries, so it's 18 volts. And it's also kind of cantankerous. Sometimes it does it, sometimes it doesn't. See? Come on, there we go. 18 volts, that goes pretty darn fast. What was this one like? This one sounds 12 volts, but it sounds faster. And then ultimately, it goes all the way to the pro cameras. Like Nikon F3 with an MD4 motor drive that has the integral battery pack, not a separate battery pack. It's all just one piece, like the MD11 was earlier. But this one is also a 12 volt, runs off 8 batteries, but it's pretty darn fast. Sounds like this. Oh, hear that? You want to hear it again? Pretty fast, huh? I told you it was pretty fast. And Canon, of course, doesn't ever want to be outdone by Nikon, so they introduced not just the F1, but their new F1 with the AE motor drive attached to it. And this one will go pretty fast too. Oh, let's see. Oh, that one ran out of film. Okay, so as you hear, those things could really burn through some film. So give guys a chance to buy a motor that they can slap on the bottom of their camera, and they'll get real interested in photography. So that's where we went. Nowadays they have recordings of different motor drives that they put in the digital cameras that aren't winding film, but it'll make the noise like you select what camera you want your digital camera to sound like. That's a little bit on the silly side, but hey, they got to think up some reason to make it sound like it had a motor. So that's my video for the day, not too long. And as you heard, there was a lot of development in the Autowinder motor drive department in the 70s and 1980s. That's when all of these came about. So leave me a comment. Tell me what you think about it. You have motor drives. You think that they're silly. I think that in this day and age, my own philosophy is that an Autowinder makes a lot more sense. It will do the ultimate task, which is to keep your camera ready to make the next exposure. But unless you're doing high-speed sports photography or wild animal photography, you probably could do just as well with a 2 frame per second winder, and it's a lot lighter, less expensive, easier to carry around. You go with the big boys and you won't be carrying it for long. These things weigh a ton. This doesn't have batteries in it and it weighs a ton. Well, thanks for watching, and until the next one, this is Mr. Gibson Guy, and I'm out of here. Bye-bye.